You get from Tim what he wants to see. I don't think Tim really cares how you achieve it. There were certain people that had certain abilities. Some people were good animators, some people were good structurally, you never knew. And so I felt that you could put together a team of groups to work on a film that would be able to create work of equal quality.
The history of visual effects films of the day was one company generally did the entire job. And this was one of those films that was going to be split up based on who could do what best in the amount of time they had for the amount of money they had. For us, we were known for optical compositing and model making to get as much in camera as possible. Everybody takes it for granted now that everything's created digitally, but at that time, it wasn't.
The style and look of all of us had to match to make sure that that style was agreed upon, identified, and then executed under Mike Fink's overall visual effects supervision. And of course, Tim would then see shots and give us notes if he wanted some changes or to make some additions. We photographed down at Warner Brothers on the set, and so you can see we just had the actors walk by from right to left, and we took that live action and we made a matte painting that went around it. And it's been reduced so that that actual scene has been reduced into the painting. The camera then would rephotograph the painting and the projection together to create a new scene. In addition to that, we would also go in and put in falling snow on many different layers and haze and mist to kind of make it that kind of wintry looking environment that is established for the film. This is Wayne Manor. You can see that this is a miniature. We have fiberfill clouds, a material that is used in pillows. It's soft and you can sculpt it. So we would attach them to scrims that moved behind the scene slowly as if to suggest there's moving clouds. And also it gave us something to project our bat beacon onto. This is shot on the set down at Warner Brothers. They had a real high-powered projector for projecting that beacon on the library wall. And during the photography, the actual symbol broke and the wing became distorted. We ended up having to fix that later in post. Also, the ideal exposure for the bat beacon on the wall doesn't give you a nice bright beam, so we had to go back and put the beam in later. The beam then is shot as a separate element, and then we would combine the scene with our added beam with the onset beam of what's up on the wall to make the composite.
My favorite scene is still the Ice Princess falling into the miniature and Batman looking down inside.
Something that John Bruno used to say is that this is a set. We have to use this. It's a set. And on Batman Returns, we were able to use it as a set 2 or 3 times. The shot where you follow her down in the building, we also shot that on the miniature. We shot her at half speed, 12 frames per second. Then when we projected that film, it made her hair incredibly frantic, like it was blown very fast by the wind, but her motions looked normal because she'd been at half speed to compensate for the camera shutter speed.
They're very short images, but they're very successful, and people don't know how it was done. And that's always the sleight of hand of visual effects, or the brothers of the black cloth, you know, the guys that work behind the scenes. That's some of my favorite stuff in the movie.
Up until Batman Returns, most films were made with visual effects which were done optically, and there were increasing numbers of shots being done digitally from the late 80s through the early 90s. Batman Returns was the first film that I know of where we replicated in CG creatures that existed, that people could recognize and acknowledge as real.
We were still in the era of making the subtle transition to using CG elements but compositing them optically. I think it was Video Image was the company at the time that did the CG bats.
We modeled a very simple bat and gave a very simple texture and flew the bat, lots of bats around, and filmed it out and showed it to Tim, and he just said, that's it, that's what we're going to do. The bat boat racing down the sewer, Bob and Dennis Gotek just came to mind. Their company is called Forward Productions, but Everybody calls them the Skotex. And I brought them in and said, this is what we got to do. It's got to be huge. I don't want it under third scale. You know, it means the tunnel's going to have to be at least 8 feet in diameter. It's got to be 100 and some odd feet long. You need a piece of real estate big enough to build it. We're going to have to shoot over cranked. It means we have to make the bat boat go that much faster just to make it look like it's going fast, even though we have to shoot over cranked to keep the water to scale. Can you do it? And they said, sure.
2,003.
They did the entire title sequence. These are major setups with water and miniatures and shadows and separate passes, and I don't think anybody really notices it. They watch the titles, it all runs under the titles, and you don't realize you've just seen 2 or 3 minutes of non-stop visual effects, and it's pretty seamless. We could roll it into the set. It was designed to be drivable, but I'm not sure it did much more than just a very slow speed kind of a motion.
Light the fire!
All of the high-speed work was done by the Skotex. As Batman jettisons fenders and body parts so that his car can get slimmer, you never see it transition completely from one to the next because there was no way to do that. Now you could do that. Now you could have the whole thing transition in CG right in front of your eyes. After we'd completed the film and I was literally packing up my office, the phone rings. We need at least 3 more shots. And I said, how much time do we have? 9 days. One of those 3 shots that we created was a shot that I did with Craig Barron.
Mike Fink called me up and said, we have a little problem with the end of the film. We need you to do another shot. We got this sketch from Tim Burton for a new shot, which would clearly show that Catwoman had survived and that she was staring at the bat beacon for the very last shot of the film. So we went ahead and did this shot very quickly, all at the last minute. We didn't have Michelle Pfeiffer available anymore, so we created this animatronic Michelle Pfeiffer puppet, and we made a little motion control rig that allowed her to sort of move and react. Again, we're not seeing her face, we only shot the puppet from the back.